Welcome to DOS Geek. We are going to do the video you requested, 33% of you, to do, which is a video on Arch Linux. So I'm going to talk to you about my experience with Arch Linux, what I love about it, some of the things maybe I don't like about it, and then of course we'll open it up in the discussion in the comments below for you to give your thoughts and opinions, which I always recommend everyone go take a look at because you get tons of awesome insight about there. So a little story about Arch. I had used it before back when I was newer in Linux. I didn't really fall in love with it back then, and I think a lot of that had to do with my skill level at that point. I've been in Linux now, I guess, 2.5 years, going on 3, and so back then when I first started playing with it, was distro hopping. I didn't know enough to know anything to really be able to maintain my own system properly. Now, Arch Linux is generally seen as an intermediate to advanced for advanced users, intermediate to advanced, somewhere around there. I would say, just my personal opinion, if you're within Linux within about a year, you start to kind of understand differences, desktop environments, different tools you like, that type of stuff, then you'll probably be fine installing Arch Linux. The biggest thing that holds most people up from trying Arch Linux is the installation, because once you're done installing the ISO for Arch Linux, all you're getting is a terminal with a blinking cursor. You have to install the desktop environment. You have to install the software packages that you want, and really a lot of it is about customization and making it work for you. That's kind of what makes Arch beautiful as well. So it's the difficult part for most people is the installation, although once you go through it a couple times, you'll start to see it's really not that difficult. But once you get past that, what you have is a really customized OS for your stuff, and we'll get into that a little more. But like most of my videos, I like to start out with looking at how Arch itself describes Arch versus, say, some random YouTuber, me, describing what Arch is for. So what is Arch Linux? And they have an article just for this. And by the way, we're going to talk about this a lot. This is the Arch Wiki. Even people who may not be huge fans of Arch will always say the Arch Wiki is just one of those amazing things that exist out there in the community. It's so well done. It's so thorough. It's a thing of beauty. You really come to appreciate it. Even if you don't use Arch, you can actually get a lot of benefit in learning out of the Arch Wiki itself. So just keep that in mind. It's a very valuable tool. But they describe it as an independently developed x86-64 general purpose GNU Linux distribution. It used to support 32-bit, doesn't anymore. So just for 64. Provide the latest versions of most software by following a rolling release model. Default installation is a minimal base system configured by the user to only add what is purposely required here. They talk about their rules and principles here. Really, it's KISS. They want to keep everything very simple of how they update packages, how they distribute things, how they patch things. It's a rolling release model. So that means that Arch, you install it once and you're constantly can update to the latest version. Whereas, say, your Ubuntu's or Mints, they're going to have point-in-time releases, like 3, 6 months, a year later. They'll do releases. This is constantly releasing updates as the software updates and gets new versions and everything else. There are advantages and disadvantages to a rolling release model. Obviously, a non-rolling release model can be more stable, and a rolling release model, because it's kind of a little more cutting edge, can be a little more volatile. Things in there can break because, you know, a patch goes in, the software rolls out with new features. They don't realize, oh, that impacts Intel users and they can't use that software. It has not happened to me yet on Arch, but it has happened to me on other Arch-based distributions a lot more, funny enough. So, you know, take that for what you will. That's just my experience. Others will tell you a different story. They'll tell you they've had perfectly stable experiences on Arch-based derivatives along with Arch, or they didn't have good experience with Arch but had a great experience with the derivatives. This is just my experience with my hardware. Just to keep in mind, I've run since I've been running Linux, of course, the Intel, oh gosh, what did I have? The 6700K, something along those lines. Then I went to the AMD Ryzen 2700X, and the GPUs I had were the NVIDIA 1070, 1080, Vega 56, Vega 64. So those are my experiences, the hardware wise, a lot of the latest stuff. Also lots and lots of laptops that I couldn't even name, most of them with Intel based GPUs. So those are the systems in which I experienced or didn't experience issues. On Arch, which is I have on laptops and desktops, I've had 0 issues in these last 3 months. None. Nada. It's not failed to boot once. It's not crashed once. It's not had any problems. So I think it's very, very stable, at least currently. Now, some people will tell you that Arch may release things at times that will become unstable. I don't know. I haven't had that experience, but it's just the things you hear out there. It's a user central distribution. It's very versatile, meaning you can utilize this for multiple things. You could use it as a server. There's even Arch for ARM-based processors, so you could put it in a Raspberry Pi and other things. So anything you could do with the other distributions you may be used to, you can also do with Arch. Arch is backed by Pacman, which is their package manager. It's a very cool package manager, by the way. I absolutely love Pacman. So to update your whole system, it's right there, Pacman-SYU, capital S. And that is how you update your whole system, assuming, of course, that you put sudo in there. And this is going to run your full update for your system and update everything to the latest and greatest. Looks like I have nothing to do because I've already done that. If you want to search for a package, you can do Pacman -SS. That lowercase s is for the search. If you just kept the capital S, it would just go straight install it. And I could search for Etcher, let's say, and it's going to find that that's there and already shows it installed. If I wanted to install Etcher, I would just remove that S there and it would go ahead and install it. So very, very easy to use package manager. What can get a little confusing is to some people is you don't have a GUI. There's no GUI pre-installed for your package manager. So once you get a desktop environment installed, which you could pick pretty much any one you want. You could pick KDE, you could use a window manager like i3, you want GNOME, you want Mate, whatever you want, you can install it. It's yours. You're customizing it to you, but you're not going to have a GUI for this. You can install GUIs in there, but you're probably, if you're using Arch, going to be more comfortable with the terminal anyways. It's faster, it's more reliable. I just prefer using the terminal. You don't have to, but you're not going to have a package GUI pretty thing with a little store that you click on stuff and click install and all that in Arch based on the default. Remember, once you finish the install, you're just going to see a blinking cursor. Then you've got to install everything else. You got to install your desktop environment, all the software, everything that you want. So it uses the Pacman software store there, but you also have the AUR. The AUR is very, very cool. This is the Arch user repository. It uses the PKG build scripts in there to basically make these packages from the community and install them on your system. You can use what they call an AUR helper to install stuff. So I use Trizen, and you can do the same thing. So instead of Pacman, I just type Trizen. Now I'm looking at the AUR. These are users who've created and compiled these software packages that now you can have access to. And let's do this. Let's just do the Lightworks. So I'm going to search for Lightworks. Boom, I already have it installed. But if I wanted to install it, you can see it has the AUR flag there. So I know it's a Arch user repository, which I should already know because I used the Trizen command. And then it says LWKS. So if I wanted to install that, it would just be Trizen -S LWKS, and that would install that AUR package onto my system, which leads me to one of the things that makes Arch really, really cool. You have so much software at your fingertips. The AUR allows you to install third-party software where licensing issues and things like that may prevent them from putting it into the official Arch repository through Pacman. But using that AUR, I can still get to that software really easy, pre-compiled for Arch, and install it. It just makes it so simple, especially on Destination Linux. Fantastic podcast, by the way, that I'm a part of. And definitely go check it out and subscribe to that. But we talk about new software and things that come out all the time, and trying to sometimes compile that or figure out how to get it installed on other distributions can be difficult. 9 times out of 10, it's already done by somebody else if I'm on Arch through the AUR, and I could just install it with that simple command and I'm done. Boom, I've got the software. I could test it out, play with it, give my opinion on it. Very, very cool. When we talk about Arch's kind of creation from the beginning here, it is based on Crux. So it was inspired by Crux, not based on Crux. Another minimalist distribution. Judd Vinay started the Arch Linux project, although I understand he hasn't continued with the project. I think he had to step down at some point, but he started this project out there. So that's kind of the foundations of how it all came about. One of the things that I love about this Arch Wiki, by the way, is the frequently asked questions. Why would I not want to use Arch? Well, you don't want to use Arch if you don't have the ability, time, desire for a do-it-yourself GNU Linux distribution. If you don't want to mess or learn about the operating system and how it works and set up everything for yourself, you want someone to do all that work for you, it's not for you. I love that they're so just like honest and blatant about this stuff. You require support for architecture other than the x86-64. You take a strong stand on distribution, which only provides free software. They have access to non-free software. If you're one of those people like, I only touch free software, GNU software, then this wouldn't be for you. You believe an operating system should configure itself, run out of the box, include a complete default set of software, desktop environment, and installation media. So you want, again, that nice GUI installer. You want everything kind of be done for you. It's not for you. You do not want a rolling release. Some people don't want a rolling release because LTS is kind of known as being a little more stable than a rolling release. So some people just want that, that known stability. And of course, it's not always the case in LTS is stable, but certainly it's deemed as more stable because there's more time in between the releases, more time for testing, that type of stuff. You're happy with your current OS. I find it funny they had to put that in there. Like, you wonder, did people like, why should I use you? I'm really happy where I'm at. And why are we talking? What is this conversation about? But if you're happy with your current OS, you definitely don't need Arch there. So they have a nice frequently asked questions for things that they see going on. One of the things you'll see, Pacman needs X feature. If you think an idea has merit, you can choose to discuss it on Pacman Dev. So let's talk about the community here. The Arch community is a very experienced community. Most of your users have been in Linux for a very long time. This makes them incredible resources for when you run into issues. But some have reported and experienced issues where they ask a question and they kind of get, the RTFM, read the manual type responses and things like that at times. The thing is, you have to keep in mind that if you're using Arch, if you're going to install Arch, you're going to have to be in the mindset that you want to fix these things, figure these things out on your own as much as possible. This community is an amazing one for Arch, but they're there to provide you some additional support, right? After you've done the research, that's their expectation. You've done some basic research, you've tried things, you're coming to them as a last-ditch effort. Now, in my experiences in going into the channels after I heard reports on IRC and stuff, is I've seen a lot of extraordinarily helpful people that, irregardless of the newbiness of the question, were there to help. It was really the individuals that kind of just didn't want to do anything for themselves. They just wanted some simple answer, didn't want to follow the instructions, that may have a different experience. That's not to say there aren't part of the community that can be, mean or rude or anything else, just like any other community in the world. But just keep that in mind when you go there. It's not geared towards new people. This isn't a distribution geared towards brand new people to Linux. So while you can be new and use it, and they'll love your passion for getting there and trying to use it, you're going to have to get in that mindset of searching through this amazing documentation, the Arch Wiki, as much as possible. Try to figure out stuff on your own, doing your own research, and then utilizing that community to kind of fill in the gaps of the information you may not have. I think that's the best way to approach it, and you'll be fine. With that being said, I've had very little issues that I've ever even thought about going to the community about, because most of it's just been covered right here in the wiki. So, you have IRC chat and other things you can hang out in and talk about Arch and get help there. So it does have a very good community. Obviously, it has a very good community. I mean, they helped build this wiki and things out here that are just absolutely incredible. One of the other things that differentiates Arch Linux from other distributions is its customization. Because you are building it basically from the ISO up, from the terminal window, you're adding your desktop environment, the software that you want, certain drivers that you need, all of that stuff. It is highly customized to your computer, and I think you get a lot of speed gain from that. You don't have a lot of bloat and other things that you wouldn't need in a distribution you set up yourself, but that a distribution that's trying to appeal to the masses, being able to install on any kind of hardware through a GUI, is going to have to include all this extra junk on top that you probably don't need, just in case somebody's using this type of, Broadcom Wi-Fi driver, and this person's using this type of GPU, and this person's doing this. They don't have to include all of that. And I also think that adds a lot to its stability over other Arch-based distros. I've not had such great experiences with other Arch-based distros. I love a lot of them. They're fantastic, but I just had a lot of experiences where I would reboot after an update and not be able to get back into my system, generally within a very short period of time of installing them. And I have not had that experience at all in Arch. And I really think that all comes down to the fact that you've customized, you don't have all that extra bloat that could break something in the background that you don't know about. Because if it's there, you probably put it there, so you know about it. And so I think that creates a big advantage. It also gives you a certain performance increase because, man, Arch boots so fast. I mean, from reset to being at the splash screen ready to use it is just immensely quick. When we talk about memory usage, they have a separate thing about why Arch is using all my RAM. It talks about how the kernel caches things here. It's a very interesting read, actually. But you can see I have 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM here. It's talking about my total physical memory. Free physical memory is about 26 gigabytes. There's my shared memory, my disk buffers, my disk cache, and then I have swap memory as well. And so you can kind of see what it's utilizing here. Utilizing OBS, recording my desktop, of course, and having some browsers and things and a couple of note-taking apps open. This is how much it utilizes. So pretty lightweight for the distro and KDE desktop environment, I think, overall. Of course, this is a beastly machine, so nothing could slow it down, even if it wanted to. It's not true. But in any case, so you got the rolling release model we talked about. You have the AUR access to all of the thousands, tens of thousands of packages that the community creates, as well as the Pacman repository that Arch utilizes. You have the amazing wiki, you have the customization, and you have the very KISS philosophy that they utilize. Keep it simple, stupid. One of the things that doesn't necessarily get talked about a lot, but I do love for Arch, is the education potential that you have. Installing Arch and learning different things about how to, properly format your drives, how to utilize the terminal to do some of these various commands that maybe you used GUIs to do before during the installation process. Just understanding all of the things that go into making a distro a complete package. All of these things you learn in the installation process with Arch, and also supporting the tool. So I think that it's an incredible educational opportunity for you. And if you want to start out with Arch, but don't want to take the risk of, hurting your system because you got things just the way they are, install it in a virtual machine, install it a couple times in a virtual machine, and then you could use it on a main machine and you'll be set. And we'll go through and I'll show you the installation wiki here. When you do go through the installation, one recommendation I have for you is to utilize multiple sources. Don't just utilize the wiki. Try to use the wiki as your primary source, but then if you get stuck in a certain area, go look up install Arch Linux and click on random blogs and things like that of other people explaining how to install it. Compare the two until it clicks in your brain, whichever method or way of explaining it. And then when you start going through it, it'll start to make a lot more sense. Also, you'll find there are other alternatives to doing certain things. The Arch Wiki says to do it this way, but there may be an easier way to get the same task done using these other sources. Again, do it in a VM first so you can make sure those other sources work. You don't end up messing up your system. But that was something that I did that I think helped a lot in the installation process to make it even easier. The other thing I wanted to show you, because we talked a lot about AURs, is the AUR, what they call helpers. I told you I used the Trizin here as the AUR helper. A lot of old documentation and things will talk about YART and AUR man. These are both discontinued. So I want to make that note because a lot of us utilized these in the past. They're discontinued now, so I would not continue to use them. You could probably use any of these other ones here that aren't deprecated, but take a look at them. I use, like I said, the Trizin there. I like it a lot. It works very well, but I've heard other people utilize other ones that they love, like Pacu, and others that they like just as much. So again, in the Arch Wiki, you can just type in AUR helpers and you're going to get that. Now let's go into show you the installation, and then we'll play a game just to show you kind of the performance on Arch. Now, when it comes to Arch's performance over, say, a Kubuntu 18.10 or other distros that I've used, it does very well in games. It games fantastically. The frames per second are exactly what I expect the performance to be on the type of machine that I have with the Vega 64 GPU, etc. I don't think particularly it does that much better or that much lower on resources or that many frames per second. If there is any difference, it's so minimal. I can't see it. 4 to 5 frames per second, perhaps. Honestly, most of these distributions right now have really good support for the hardware, and you're just getting a lot of good performance out of them from a gaming perspective. Now, if I change the desktop environment out to something like maybe i3, where I have seen a better performance because you just got less things running in the background and stuff, maybe I'd get a little more gain. But comparing this as a KDE installation to, say, Kubuntu 18.10, the differences in gaming are pretty minimal for me in my hardware. Again, your experiences, depending on what you have, may vary. So this is your installation guide for Arch here. So, it's a long guide, but in very detailed, and you're going to see a lot of things that are going to look confusing, but just read it. Just don't skim it. You got to read it. That's the difference with the Arch Wiki. You really got to get in there and kind of understand what they're doing from beginning to end. And that way, that allows you also to look up other methods of doing it. They're going to go through everything here from partitioning, formatting your disks, mounting those disks, setting up your mirrors, doing your time zones, localization, setting up your network configurations in here. But you can see none of this stuff is particularly under network configuration. I mean, this isn't a huge section here. This is if you just follow through and don't skim and don't get intimidated by the way it looks, you're going to realize this really isn't very difficult stuff at all. So then you're going to, set up bootloader. Then you're going to install a desktop environment at some point. And I think that's the point with the desktop environment and installing that, where I went for some outside blogs and stuff for installing. But we can do desktops here, desktop environment, and got some additional help with out there. It just didn't click with me for some of them, but officially supported Budgie, Cinnamon, Deepin, Enlightenment, and GNOME, KDE Plasma, LXD, LXQT, Mate, Sugar. I didn't even know about Sugar. XFCE, unofficially supported. There's a whole bunch of others. I mean, really anything you could really want here for you to utilize. Use a different window manager if you want. So I mean, there's just so much here you can do to customize and make it your own. So that's really what I want to show you. I mean, it's hard to do a review on Arch because in essence, a lot of it is behind the scenes. A lot of it is in that customization capability and building it for your system and what your workflow, what you do with it. It doesn't come prepackaged with software to show you. Your settings and things like that are going to go through a desktop environment that you choose, like, the colors and themes and all of that. So there's not a lot to show. Just know that it performs very well. It's very stable. You have 2 package management systems, the Pacman and the AUR, to basically get in there and get your software. And the terminal is very easy to utilize to be able to get anything that you want. In fact, if we just want I need a video editor, I can look for a keyword like editor, and then I've got all this software that I can look through here in the Pacman for different editors that are out there and see which one, meets my needs or do more research on it. But there's so much software available out there for you to play with and enjoy. So just a lot of cool things that you can do with Arch. And once you learn Arch, you get to go around and tell people. And the rule is you have to do it within the first sentence or 2 that you use Arch. By the way, I use Arch Linux. You can get that wallpaper at DOSgeekcommunity.com. Now let's play some games. Here we go, playing some Natural Selection 2 because I already had it installed. I'm not very good at this game. I have not played it a lot, but basically one team gets to be the monsters and another team gets to be the Marines, and your goal is to destroy their base and stuff. That's what I know so far. And there's little portals and things scared me. You could create to help you out, but essentially you want to stop their infestation. You want to have a good captain that teaches you or sends you ammo and weapons and all kinds of stuff, and you want to kill everything that looks alien. unlike what I'm doing here. There we go. Doing good. We're running this through Steam. It's a pretty cool game. It's an older game, but it's a pretty cool one. Yeah, I'm liking this.
Literally farming achievements. If you're wondering. What happened?
Build structure and waypoint.
I was on that. I didn't hear a word you did that. I just thought I was farming achievements on the server, so. Oh wait, they have one.
The Hive yeah, doesn't have no precedent. They're still gaining, but
I didn't realize that. Do command stations do the same thing?
yeah, come in, say.
Yeah. Look at that win.
Yeah.
Going to the heart of their base.
I'm gonna try to grab my Nevermind. It's gone.
I've never heard of it, never mind.
Yeah, they're really rare. You only see them on the higher bracket.
Oh, thank goodness they showed up. Yeah, that's how I like to show off a game.
Thanks for the carry, Commander.
So that is my video on Arch Linux. We got some natural selection 2 in. We showed you the package manager, the Arch wiki, and we talked about what makes Arch awesome. Leave your comments down below in the comments. Let me know what I missed. Let me know some other reasons that make Arch amazing that I may not have covered. We know it's on a rolling release cutting edge. We know it's got amazing package selection abilities, be able to get any software that you want. We know it's fast, it's minimal. It's everything you could want in a distribution. We also know that it's a lot more difficult to install than your traditional distribution, but it might be worth it. You let me know. Until next time, get out there and fill your brains.
Don't forget to subscribe. Does not like the video.